Hey y'all, it's Ryan. I don't know about where you are, but here it is cold and rainy and just plain nasty. It's definitely making me dream of the sun and the summer and waves. So in this video, we're going to bring a little bit of that summer sun to this winter day. Grab your drawing tools and let's go. So I am using my iPad and Apple Pencil, as well as the app Procreate to do this drawing. So this is what we're going to work on today, is this really pretty beach scene situated inside the circle with that nice blur around it. So I'm going to turn that group off, start a new layer, and then you'll notice I have my drawing guide here in the center. So I'm going to come up to my wrench, make sure the drawing guide is turned on, and I want to make sure that I have symmetry on. My thickness is all the way up to the max, so same with the opacity, just so I can clearly see where that midline is. I'm going to start by selecting black and making sure that the pen or the brush that I'm using is my Monoline brush. I'm going to set the brush to about 13%, and then I am going to draw a circle here on my page. So in this layer, I have Drawing Assist turned on. So what that'll do is whatever I draw over here on my right side, it's going to automatically draw on the other side of my screen for me. So I'm going to draw a half circle. Okay. I'm going to edit it to make it more circular. I'm going to grab my arrow and make sure that it is in the center of my screen. So this is actually just a guide for me. I'm going to use this, I'm going to actually make this go away at the end of the drawing, but I'm going to set all of my guidelines now to help me with creating the beach scene that I want. So the next one that I'm going to do, I'm going to add this to a new layer, and I'm going to draw my horizon line in the back. So all it is just a straight line going across the circle about 3/4 of the way up. And then I'm going to draw a triangle here to give me a perspective as far as which way the dock is facing. For that, I'm going to turn Drawing Assist back on this layer. And since I know where my midline is, I'm just going to draw a diagonal line down to meet the outside of my circle. So again, these are guidelines that I'm going to use for the dock and for the horizon. I'm going to add one more to the middle of my triangle here, just go straight across. And when I hold my line, it snapped to a straight line for me. So that will be the edge of the dock. So since these are guidelines, I'm actually going to come into the layer, click on In, and turn that opacity down to about 35%. Because again, I don't need to clearly see them. I need to see them just enough to draw over them. So I'm going to add a new layer. Still on Monoline. I am going to increase my brush size up to about 25%. And I am going to draw the outside or the outline of my dock. Okay. So on this layer, I'm going to turn Drawing Assist back on because I'm going to add 2 posts to the outside edges of my dock, but I want them to match. I want them to be even. So I'm going to draw one here, and I want it to do the same thing over on the right side for me. So click on my layer, click Drawing Assist. I'm going to draw a straight line up. I'm going to add curvature to the top. And then straight line down connecting to the dock. Okay, so what I did on the left was done on the right for me. Going to add another layer to this, and I'm actually going to switch from Monoline to the 6B pencil found in the sketching brushes of Procreate. Now I'm switching because I'm going to add the lines in the dock to show that wood plank, and I want that texture of the 6B pencil. So I'm going to draw my lines across, holding on my screen so that it snaps to a line for me. And since I want this to be kind of old and weathered, I'm going to put breaks in between some of these lines. Now I really like the snapping feature for these lines because, as you can tell, I am not great at drawing or keeping my hand steady when drawing straight lines like that. So I'm actually going to use my eraser to add a little break right here. All right, so now I have that wood look, the planks set in my dock. I'm actually going to start working on the birds that I want in the sky, and then I'm going to put a sun in the upper corner over here. So I'm going to add a new layer, switch my brush to, I'm going to switch it to the script brush found in the calligraphy brushes. And I like to work on these shapes or the birds kind of up and off to the side, so that way I can select it and move it wherever I want it to go. I use the script brush because it allows me to create that wing shape just by changing the pressure that I'm putting on my screen. I also, for some reason, I am not great, y'all, at creating, well, it's actually not bad, but I'm usually not good at creating this kind of shape going off to the left, probably because I'm right-handed. So a little trick that I do is I create two going off to the right. I should have just left the one that I did on the left-hand side. Okay, that one's not bad. And then I use my select tool, make sure it's set to freehand, and then I circle that second wing, click on my arrow, I select flip horizontal, and then I move it to where it's going to be located. This allows me to change the angle of the wing, and then I can come into freeform and I can change the look of it just a little bit so it's slightly different than the one on the right. Okay, so I'm going to switch my brush back to Monoline. So I'm going to come up to my recent because it'll be found there, and I'm going to draw a circle for the body. Color drop that in, and then I'm actually going to drop my pencil down to about 1, and I'm going to just create a little bit of a where the bird's head would be if I'm looking at it flying towards me, and then 2 little lines for its feet that are tucked up underneath its body. So here's my bird. I'm going to use my arrow to select it and drag it down to where I want it in the scene. And I'm going to angle it just a little bit. So I like how this bird turned out. So instead of redrawing it a few times, I'm actually going to duplicate it and change them just a little bit. So I'm going to open my layers tab, swipe left on my layer and click duplicate. I'm going to click the arrow to grab that new layer. I'm going to flip it horizontally, and then I'm going to make him just a little bit bigger because he is closer into me. And I can actually make this first one just ever so slightly smaller. Then I'm going to duplicate this bird again. Select. And then I'm going to make this one the smallest because he is the furthest away in this scene from me. I'm actually going to make him be flying straight like that. Okay, now that I have the 3 birds that I want, I'm going to merge these layers together by pinching them together. So now they're all on one layer. The next element that I'm going to add is going to be a sun. So I have Monoline selected. I'm going to turn my weight back up to about 12 or 13%. And I am going to do my best to draw a circle. There we go. And then I can select the circle and move it where I want it to be. Right there. All right. So I have all of the outlines for my elements where I want them. Now I'm going to go in and add color and details to the image after I group all of these together. So I'm going to swipe to the right on each layer. I'm going to click group. So now all of these are one group and I can move everything around at the same time together if I want to. Now, because I am getting rid of the outline circle, I'm actually going to be creating the color layer underneath it, just so it gives me a boundary to kind of play in, but I can also clearly see that outline that I'm working with. So the first element that I'm going to add details to is going to be the dock. So I'm going to change my color to a really pretty brown. I'm going to change my brush to this Twig brush found in the organic brush set in Procreate. And I'm going to test the size of the brush to see. Let's bump that up to about 60% and then bring that opacity down to 30. So I am going to draw these lines on the post first, and this just kind of gives it the look of wood grain. That's why I'm using this brush. I'm going to draw across. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, so you can do this as slowly or quickly as you want. And then if you really want to, you can, and this is how I usually do kind of textures like this, just so it makes it a little more natural looking, and it also, I put a different pressure on the brush each time and in different places, so it's darker in places and lighter in some. So now, since I went a little crazy, I'm going to use my eraser. I'm going to set it to Monoline and 100, and I am just going to clean up these strokes right here so that I have a clean picture and I don't have to worry about all of this off to the side. Okay. So in this layer, I'm actually going to turn the opacity of the layer itself down just a little bit, just to give it more of that weathered look. So I'm going to turn the opacity down to about 50%. So it's still there, it's just a lot lighter. The next element that I'm going to add is going to be my water, and I'm going to put it underneath the dock layer just because I am going to put water around the dock, and I want to make sure that any color that I add is underneath this black line. So I'm going to pick a really pretty dark blue from my water. I'm going to make sure I have my Monoline brush selected. and it is set at 13. And then I'm going to give myself a container. I'm going to bump that up to 50. I'm going to give myself a container to fill. So instead of having to come in with individual strokes to fill in this shape, I want to be able to use the color fill. And to do that, I have to make sure the shape that I'm creating is completely enclosed, so it doesn't have any open spaces, or else it's going to fill up my whole canvas with this really pretty blue color. But I don't want the whole canvas that color. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to trace around the dock. So again, just to make sure that I get a completely closed shape. When I go to use that color fill. All right, so I'm going to drag my blue into that area. And then I'm going to add a new layer above my water layer. I'm going to click on it and select Clipping Mask. So that way any details that I add into the water will only show up on the blue of the water. So I want to add movement because that's a very flat looking picture right now. So I'm going to change my brush to this Oceans brush found in the Elements section. I'm going to change this to a much lighter blue. I'm going to drop the opacity down, and then I'm just going to paint alongside. I'll go over it a couple times, and then I can come in here to this layer and turn that opacity down even more. And take that down to 70%. And now I have that really pretty movement in the water. I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to work on the sky next. So make sure my brush is set back to monoline. Draw the container. And then fill it. Now to add texture into the sky, I'm going to do like I did with the water, add a new layer, make it a clipping mask, and go even lighter. And then I'm going to change my brush to clouds, which can be found in the Elements brushes in Procreate. I have a nice light blue set. I'm just going to gently draw in the clouds in the sky. I can bring the opacity of that up a little bit, make the clouds a little bigger, and go over it a second time. The next element I'm going to work on is the sun right here. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to select a really pretty gold color. I need to make sure my brush is set to monoline. Draw my circle. And then fill it. And I want that sun to have that glow around it, just like our sun does whenever you see it up in the sky and the beach. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate my sun layer, I'm going to click on the bottom layer, come over to Adjustments, and select the Gaussian blur. I'm going to up that blur. Let's take it up to 20%. I'm going to do that by sliding my pencil across my screen, or you can use your finger to slide across and up the percentage of it. But I also want this to have kind of that bright white look of the sun as well. So I'm going to duplicate this blurred layer, and I'm going to change the blend mode to add. So now you can see that nice bright yellow, bright white look to the sun. So I'm going to come back to my original sun layer and add just a smidge of blur to that original one, so it has a softer edge to it. So I want to add more texture to the sun, so I'm going to add a clipping mask, and then I'm going to change this to a much lighter yellow, and I'm going to go into the textures brushes and select Dove Lake. And then I am just going to draw on top of that sun, so now it gives it that nice texture to it. And once I'm done with all of that, again, I'm going to merge these layers together to create one layer. Okay, we are almost done with this image. The last piece that I did is I added a new layer underneath all of my layers, and then I added that blur to it just like I did on the sun. So I'm going to add a new layer at the bottom. I'm going to click on this blue, hold it down so it selects the blue in the sky. I'm going to change my brush. In airbrushing, go to soft brush, and I have it set at 4%. So I am going to create an outline around my circle, around this scene, using the different colors and the different sections, because there are 3 different sections with the colors. So I think it'll add that nice little finishing touch. To this image. Okay, and then the brown. Okay, so in that image, I'm going to go to my adjustments again, select the Gaussian blur, and blur just a little bit. Let's do 10%. So the final piece for this drawing is I'm going to go into my layers and go into the group that we created, and I'm going to select the outlines that I don't want to have showing on this image. So I don't want my outer circle. I don't want the guidelines. And then the last one that I don't want is the outline of the sun. And there we have our beautiful summer day on the water. I hope this drawing brought a little bit of warmth and sunshine into the world that you're in right now. If you enjoyed drawing with me today, please like and subscribe to this channel so that you're notified whenever new videos are posted. Hope to see you soon!